Hey everybody, welcome back to Off the Wall. It's Mike. I'm flying solo today. It's we've all got busy weeks. Bogz is moving, Soul's on vacation, and I had a couple of minutes to spare to talk about episode 1 of season 1 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. We've None of us have really made it a secret that we weren't super looking forward to this one. The couple of trailers they did, the humor didn't work, really, especially for any of us. A couple of like the air horn joke was funny, but for the most part, it was just kind of hard to get a fix on what the show was going to be. So I went into episode 1 kind of with low expectations, and it's hard to tell with this. So I'm actually very curious as to why they only elected to drop one episode. I know that they moved the show to Thursdays so that it wouldn't overlap too much with Andor, but I feel like if they went ahead and just dropped 3 episodes, they would have I think it would have actually not had any overlap at all. So it's kind of curious they didn't do that, because I honestly feel like this first episode is could have benefited greatly from a part 2, especially because there's 9 in this season and the episodes themselves are so short. I feel like this is just the first part of a story, obviously because it's the first episode, but there's a lot of things that need to get explained and flushed out a bit from this first episode, to the point where it just kind of left me scratching my head. Like, a lot of things were set up. Now, I don't expect every question to get answered in the first episode, but they're asking us to be patient for a lot of payoff, and that's a lot of goodwill to ask for in your first episode. I do want to start things off by going over my positive thoughts about this episode, because I actually do have quite a few, and I want to just preface everything like we don't do spoiler free really much on this channel. So I want to talk about my positives, and my biggest positive I think I have is how much better the CGI looks. There was a lot of complaints going around the CGI didn't look great in the trailers, and I think a lot of that is to be blamed on the fact that, like, YouTube compresses video files when they're uploaded, so the quality you're seeing them in is never their original intended quality. And watching the show on Disney Plus on my TV, the CGI looks a lot better. The only couple of times where it doesn't look great, the biggest issue I'm having, the thing I'm having a big issue with, is honestly just her hair. And that's just because like long, thick hair like that is hard to do in CGI. It really is. The same with clothes. With the Hulk, he was always just a large mass of body with some pants. um Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk, tends to stay more fully clothed. It's a lot more things to animate, so there are some times that stuff like that doesn't look quite as good, but the transformations look pretty clean, and again, it does look better when you consider the ask that they've been given. With the Hulk, there's much less of a uncanny valley because he's so monstrous looking. She-Hulk looks fairly human, just green and built, so it creates a bit more of that uncanny valley problem because her features are much more humanoid. I think another big positive this show has is the chemistry between Mark Ruffalo and Tatiana Maslany as the Banner cousins. Well, not the Banner cousins, but as Bruce Banner and Jennifer Walters. Their chemistry is to die for. I 1000% believe these two are cousins. They probably grew up very close, teasing each other, making fun of each other, having fun at each other's expense in a friendly way, that like a term of endearment. They love each other. These are cousins who are besties. You get that 100. I mean, it is no question. Like, you could tell me these two are related in real life, and I would believe you. I buy them as cousins. Even like her hair is kind of this weird curly, sort of slightly unkempt, kind of poofy look that Mark Ruffalo has, except his is just shorter. So even their features are like, they look related. They look like they come from the same gene pool. We're briefly introduced to the character of Nikki Ramos, played by Ginger Gonzaga. Soul is gonna murder me for how badly I pronounce some of these names. We're briefly introduced to her as just kind of Jessica's bestie. She's fine. She doesn't do much. She's got like 2, 3 lines of dialogue, and she's kind of just there to be the quirky cheerleader friend. And we'll see where else they go with that, depending on how close to comics they stick. I haven't read a lot of She-Hulk. I've actually read very little She-Hulk, but I've been kind of going through and like doing some online cliff notes skimming in preparation for the show. But other than that, I mean, the story itself is pretty solid, like what they're going for. And I wish I had a lot more positive to say about this. It's really going to depend on what the second episode is like. While I do think this episode is setting up for an interesting story in terms of like character development, the script itself leaves a lot to be desired. I feel like everyone in the show, who we spend time with, namely Mark Ruffalo and Tatiana Maslany, are giving 110% in their performance. They are trying their damnedest and they are acting their hearts out. I feel like the script lets them down sometimes. The jokes are fairly hit or miss. The thing I will say is that like when they hit, they hit. Like when the jokes are good and funny, they are good and funny. I audibly laughed out loud a couple of times watching this. Yes, including the post-credit scene, easily the best joke in the entire episode. One of the best jokes in a Marvel movie, and frankly, one of the best post-credit scenes, I think, in terms of just raw entertainment value. But on the juxta to that, when the jokes miss, they miss pretty big. I mean, when they fall flat. They only do a couple moments of breaking the fourth wall. It's not really done for laughs. It's mostly done for quick draw exposition, which is okay. But I'm also a firm believer in show don't tell. And because they've limited themselves to 30 minutes with this episode, there's a lot of telling and not a lot of showing. There's several times where things are said and explained through dialogue where I feel like it would be more impactful if we saw it happen. Now, the next couple things I'm going to say, I ask that you please just like understand that these are just my thoughts, but also just let me get through everything before you start caps locking at me. I appreciate what they were going for in terms of how Jennifer has had to combat keeping her anger contained, because that is certainly an experience that most, if not all, women can share. We spend almost no time with it, though, and when we do, it kind of contradicts itself. And my point is, she talks about that she's so able to maintain her composure and control of her Hulk form because as a woman, dealing with being catcalled and harassed and just mistreated in a lot of ways that women are nowadays, she's had to kind of develop that control of her emotions. I think it would have benefited the moment, because I feel like the moment that comes up in particular during one of the yoga scenes, I feel like that moment was meant to carry a lot more emotional weight on the page than it does in the show. We have one scene prior to her going to Bruce's retreat where she's harassed by a group of douchebags outside of the bar, and she hulks out and just kind of murks these dudes, which I feel like a lot of women were like, yeah, no, it'd be nice to do that. No, trust me, like I've run into plenty of douchebags at bars myself where I'm like, if I could Hulk out and just kind of throw these guys through a window and get away with it, I'd be down for that. But that's kind of our only moment we have with it. We have a kind of a scene at the beginning with this other lawyer that comes across as insensitive, but not so much shitty. Later on in the episode, he does some things that come across as just plain shitty. But it's when she gets to that moment where she's telling Bruce these things she's had to put up with, we haven't seen it. Now, the argument could be made that just as a woman in her field in this day and age, it's kind of implied she's gone through that, and it absolutely is. But when she talks about all these times she's maintained control of her anger, I feel like it would have been cool to see her have those moments, to really let this moment that where she kind of, unloads a little bit, like, on with Bruce, like, you don't like, this is what I've had to deal with. And I'm just kind of like, but I haven't seen that. The audience hasn't seen that. Yes, it's implied given the current world we live in and have lived in for a long time, the things that women have had to go through. Um, but for as my phone goes off at the worst possible moment, but for the emotional weight they were wanting that scene to carry, because this is a visual medium, because that scene outside the sports bar lasts like I think 10 seconds, like tops. It kind of contradicts itself, because she talks about how I've had these moments of getting catcalled and harassed and being called stuck up, and I've had to maintain my anger. But the one time we see her have one of these moments, she hulks out at the end of it, which is slightly contradicting it, but it also kind of hammers home the point of, like, if we had seen these moments before where she had super like just real good control of just trying to maintain her composure to get away from douchebags, and then when she's outside the sports bar, she can't contain it anymore, she hulks out, would have been a great moment for her to say, like, no, it wasn't until this Hulk thing happened that I suddenly had like these problems. I've been able to hold my composure before, and I just need to work harder. And it would have had this great moment of like acknowledging a prior strength, having to adapt to a new situation to reinforce that pre-existing strength going forward in a new situation. It's kind of a mixed bag, but I think the main thing that causes this issue is that the episode's only 30 minutes long. And we have talked on this channel a lot, particularly with Moon Knight and Ms. Marvel, where if you're only going to give yourself 6 episodes, make the episodes longer and give them time to breathe. If you're going to do shorter episodes, that's fine, just do more of them. And that seems to be the route they're taking, but they're still rushing the pacing. The pacing in this episode is so fast. We get, like I said, it is 35 minutes including credits. The show itself, beginning to end of post-credit scene, is maybe 31 and a half minutes. That is not a lot of time. And if we're going to spend 9 episodes, let's really let those 30 minutes tell a story. But it's just a rush to try to get to a fight scene at the end of the episode that comes out of nowhere. And I'm sure we'll get some explanation for it later on down the road, but it also just looked clumsy and sloppy and didn't look good. So it's this first episode is kind of a mess. We have 8 more episodes to go. So plot thread things going forward, I'm hoping we get some let this story breathe, because it's a good idea for a story. It's a great idea for a story. But let's spend some time living. Let's live with Jennifer Walters for a while. Just being Jennifer Walters, we are so quick. She is She-Hulk in the first couple of minutes. We are not with her long before she is changing into She-Hulk. And I kind of would have liked some time to spend with her. Again, if we're gonna have 9 episodes, I would have liked to have spent like a whole episode just getting to know Jen. Just let me get to know this person and have her, let's have the accident where she gets Bruce's blood and she hulks out and all that at the end of the episode. And then like the stuff with the bar and her training with Bruce and all that can be in episodes 2 and episodes 3. Again, we got 9 episodes to play with. We get her whole transformation origin story, plus training, plus full control, plus back to present day, plus first fight in the first episode, which is only 30 minutes long. That is a lot of bullet pointing. And if we've got 9 episodes, let's use the 9 episodes. Let's live in this world, and we're on the West Coast now. Where she's, I think it's Los Angeles. Yeah, it's a West Coast person. Let's learn about what the West Coast is like in the MCU. We spent all this time on the East Coast and in China. Let's spend, and in Russia. Let's spend some time on the West Coast. You know, we spend time in Jersey and New York 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 and Eastern Europe and Russia. It's like let's spend, and space. Let's spend some time on the West Coast, and let's spend some time getting to know Jennifer, and just as Jennifer. I didn't need her to be She-Hulk in the first episode, like from the get-go. So I'm really kind of apprehensive because there's a lot of things about this episode that were great, that were funny, and there's a lot of things about this episode that really frustrated me. And I really want to see like how episode 2 supplements episode 1, because I feel like both with Ms. Marvel and Moon Knight, and honestly for Obi-Wan, their first episodes were best when they were supplemented with episode 2. Their first episodes on their own didn't hold as much water until we got part 2 in the second episode. So their decision to not put 2 or 3 episodes up on day 1 was a little weird, and I think it kind of did them a disservice, because now instead of being like, oh, okay, I'm curious to see and interested to see what's going to happen next, I'm more scratching my head like, I need to see what's next so I know how I feel about this. Because there's some writing choices that just really confuse me, and I'm trying to figure out what it is we're in such a rush to get to. But like I said, like positives again, like all the stuff with Tatiana Maslany and Mark Ruffalo as Jen and Bruce. I mean that is fantastic television. That is great casting, great television. That was good writing. Plus, we're learning more about Hulk. Hulk has been kind of like sidelined since the first Avengers. We don't know a whole lot about him or what he's been up to, and we're learning more about him and his relationship with Tony that we didn't get to see on the screen as much as I would have liked. But it's still very much Jennifer Walters She-Hulk show. But it's nice that there is that other Hulk character to kind of be that frame of reference for her. And I'm hoping that we get some more of that. Like, I hope that this isn't the last we see of Mark Ruffalo. And also I hope that we get to see more of her kind of learning with him, because he has spent all these years with this Hulk condition, and there's a lot of things that she hasn't experienced yet that are probably coming. There's a little bit of foreshadowing with the whole, like once they see you as a monster, that'll never go away. Bruce has, we talk about it, but Bruce has lived through some shit as the Hulk. He mentions he's like for 15, it took me 15 years to get to this point. And the things that he lost and suffered and endured along the way. I hope those aren't like forgotten. Like, I hope we spend some more time with that, because I feel like that the two of them, I feel like She-Hulk and Hulk have a lot to learn from each other, and I want to see more of that relationship. And I know Daredevil's coming, and that's cool, and I'm super psyched for that, because I want to see it, because love me some Charlie Cox. But as far as being, a She-Hulk show, it definitely still is, but I need to see where we're going with this. And like I said, the post-credit scene, best joke I've heard in a long time. Hashtag Captain America. And I will say that I have a theory for how the season might end. And if they go that route, I'm cool with it, but I know a lot of people are not. I think that there might be another situation similar to something that happened with Ms. Marvel that we'll see. I could be wrong, but I almost feel like that's the route they're going. And if it is, I'm actually pretty cool with it. I think it's very interesting writing if that's the route we're taking. And if it is, some folks are going to be mad, and maybe some folks will be like, you know what? Neat. So we'll see. But I would say watch this, because I've seen a lot of people who have absolutely loved this episode. And I know there's some people who hated it, and there's some people who hated it for all the wrong reasons. And I like to think I'm not one of those people. I like to think I'm pretty even balanced, but I'm a dude. So what I say and feel and how I think I'm expressing myself could be off base. I'm sure I'll get yelled at by somebody. That's fine. But yeah, I want to see more, but right now it feels less like I'm excited to see more, and just kind of like I want to see where they're going with this because I'm not super sure. So let me know what you guys thought down in the comments about the first episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Let me know what you thought about my thoughts. I'm sure you guys have plenty to say. You can find me on Twitter, and all our Twitter stuff is in the description of this video. Like the video, subscribe to our channel. We are almost at 100 subscribers. You guys are awesome. We just crossed 75 the other day. We're planning something for when we hit the big 100. We're not sure what it's going to be yet, but you'll hear more about that soon. And until next time, I'm Mike, and we'll see you guys here again on Off the Wall. Bye.